If you ever feel like your garden is getting overrun with pests or that your soil looks a little tired after only a couple of seasons of gardening, it might be because you're gardening with a monoculture. That basically means one plant per bed or garden area. You know, nature doesn't do it like that, and neither should we. We should garden with a polyculture, multiple crops together which benefit each other. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use intercropping strategies so you can have a successful garden this year. So let's garden on. So this video is all about intercropping, plants that grow well together and create a strong ecosystem. But stay tuned towards the end of this video, and I'm going to show you one plant you should never plant with anything else, because if you plant it, it's going to kill everything else and become super invasive, and you'll probably never be able to get rid of it. So stay tuned towards the end for that one plant you should never plant with any other plant. And before we get into this video about intercropping, I just want to show you guys my shirts I have available. One of them is a skeleton watering his plants. It says, "I'm just trying to keep my plants alive just in time for Halloween." So it's a perfect way for you guys to support the channel. If you don't want to buy a shirt, you can always just leave a like and subscribe and share this video. So first up, I'm planting some broccoli with a bunch of different herbs. But before I get into the exact herbs that I'm planting in my garden today, you're probably wondering why you should intercrop. And you might also be thinking, well, most farmers around the world don't intercrop, so why should I? But so the truth is they should be. And monoculture farming is one of the main reasons why soils around the world are degrading. See, the microdiversity in the soil, they depend on a polyculture system. You know, all that monoculture farming degrades the soil and strips it of its natural balance and microdiversity. And basically, farmers who do a monoculture farming practice, they're forced to use a ton of pesticides and herbicides. And one of the main goals of doing a polyculture or intercropping is we want to try to use as least amount of pesticides and herbicides as possible, ideally none. So by mixing a bunch of these different plants together, we're hoping that nature works together to help defend itself away from pests, and that this garden can be nice and strong without using any kinds of herbicides or pesticides. So intercropping is a great strategy to help build a strong ecosystem in your garden. So in my garden today with my broccoli, I'm planting 3 herbs in this section. So I got some cilantro, I got some dill, and some chamomile. So the cilantro and the dill in particular are going to help attract beneficial insects like ladybugs and hoverflies that are going to go after some of the pests like aphids and cabbage worms. But they're also going to help mask the scent of the broccoli. So the scent of all these herbs are going to help protect the broccoli from damage. So another reason why I'm planting these 3 herbs together is because they're going to attract pollinators at different times because they bloom at different times. So the chamomile in particular is going to help fight off disease, but all these herbs are going to help build moisture in the soil because they're not going to leave any part of my garden bare and empty. So that's the whole point of doing intercropping. You're going to have all these plants working together, sharing resources and space, where the difference between intercropping and companion planting is with companion planting, you're trying to find the plants that grow best together, where intercropping, you're growing plants that are going to share resources and space to grow together as a whole ecosystem. So sticking with that theme of creating a strong ecosystem in my garden with intercropping to protect my broccoli and other plants, I'll also be adding some chives to my garden too. I got some onion and garlic chives, but basically what these are going to do too is basically the same thing as some of these other herbs. They're going to attract beneficial insects to the garden while they're going to deter the bad ones. So I'm going to plant these basically around the outskirts of the bed. And, not only do these taste good, but they protect your garden too. So like I mentioned before, one of the goals of intercropping is to not waste any space. And one of the ways we can do that is by intercropping radishes in this bed too. So one of the benefits of radishes is they don't take up a lot of space. They grow quickly. So I have 3 varieties. The sorrel radish, it can mature in 23 days. So that's super quick. It's going to basically produce a crop before the broccoli and some of these other herbs get too big. And also I have a Valentine's Day blend, which matures in 25 days, and a pink beauty radish, which matures in 27 days. So basically I'm going to just mix them in between all the gaps, so there's not any gaps in this garden that's leaving soil bare, or at least as least amount of soil bare as possible. So let's go ahead and plant this sorrel radish, which matures in 23 days. And this side, I'm just going to separate the different varieties of radishes. So I'll do one variety here and another variety in the middle, and then the last variety at the end on the other side. So again, in between all the gaps, sprinkle in. Now let's do the Valentine's Day blend. Again, these are maturing in 25 days in the middle of this bed. Sprinkle in between all the gaps. And lastly, the pink beauty radishes, which mature in 27 days. So we're supposed to get some rain today, but it's probably not going to be enough rain. So I'm going to go ahead and water all this in right now. But I just want to let you guys know, so a lot of beginners, they'll make the mistake, oh, it's going to rain, and they don't water their plants. But if you just go ahead and dig a little underneath the surface, you'll see that your soil is still dry. So even if you're getting some rain, it's best to water newly transplanted plants in, just in case. Unless if you're getting a ton of rain, a big storm coming, if you're just having a little rain come in, make sure you water these new plants. So I have a little confession to make. If you follow my channel, you might have noticed that I already planted some broccoli in this bed a couple weeks ago in September. But back then it was still kind of hot and the broccoli died. I knew what I was doing was a risk, but considering that here in Houston, we have a really short window for cool season vegetables, I decided to take the chance and plant them a little early, but it was still kind of hot and the broccoli just dried up from the heat and died. If I was going to do that, I really needed some shade, because the other side of the garden kind of has a little bit of a microclimate where I planted some cauliflower. The cauliflower survived because it has a bunch of shade from some of the trees I have over there, but the broccoli died. But now temperatures are finally cooling down, and the broccoli, I don't think it's going to die from the heat anymore. We shouldn't have any days in the 90s. We're going to have some days in the 80s, but if I make sure I water regularly and protect these plants by watering. But other than that, the risk I run into now is that we might get early frost. A lot of times we get our first frost in like January, but sometimes we get a frost as early as December. So if that happens, then these plants might be at risk, because these are cool season plants, not cold season. So one year when I was in high school, I think it snowed on December 8th. So hopefully we don't get anything that early this year, and these plants are able to grow and produce before that first frost. So this is the bed where I have that cauliflower that I just mentioned, but I'm also going to be adding some rhubarb. So rhubarb can get pretty large, so just make sure you give it enough space. This bed already has a bunch going on in it, but we're also going to add some herbs too. So let me show you what herbs I'm adding to this bed next. So just like with that broccoli bed, in this bed with the rhubarb and cauliflower, I'm also planting some herbs too to help attract beneficial insects and deter some of the bad ones. Like I got some dill right here, we got some cilantro, we also have some sage, and we have some bunch of onions, all gonna work together to create that ecosystem to help all these plants thrive together. So with this dill in mind, I'm also growing some cucumbers here in fall here in Texas, because we have a short growing season when it comes to cool season plants, but we have a long growing season when it comes to like warm season, more like spring and summer type of plants. So I have the dill here. I also have the cucumbers growing in another bed. I'm going to make my own pickles with my own dill and my own cucumbers. And when I do my watering, I like to do a couple passes to allow the water to soak in. And I also want to let you guys know that I'm here as a guide. So something that works for me might not work for you and vice versa. It just depends on a lot of different factors, what's working for me and what might not work for you, like my region, my climate, and a bunch of other things in my garden that might not be present in your garden. But yeah, so I'm here as a guide and you can try what I'm doing. It might work for you or it might not, but if it doesn't, just try something else and keep on gardening. So I want my garden to grow nice and strong, but I also don't want to shock these plants. So this is an organic slow release fertilizer. Sometimes when it comes to fertilizing, less is more, because if you do too much, you could end up burning your plants. So I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of this fertilizer throughout all these plants to help them thrive and give them that little bit of a boost. But this is a 573 fertilizer from Fox Farm. Like I said, it's organic slow release. And so you got 5% nitrogen, 7% for phosphorus, and 3% potassium. That's NPK. So let's go ahead and add a little bit of this fertilizer to these plants. I'm going to do the same thing to that other bed too and some of my other plants around my garden. And just sprinkle a little bit around all the soil. And like I said earlier with the watering, I like to do multiple passes of the watering to let that water really soak in to the soil. And I had watered earlier maybe about 20 minutes ago, and now I'm going to go ahead and water again to really soak in all this fertilizer too. So now it's time for that bonus plant, the one plant that you should never grow with other plants in your garden. That's mint. So mint, it smells good, it tastes good, and a lot of people want to grow it in their garden. But the one beginner mistake a lot of beginner gardeners make is they grow mint with some of their other plants. And before you know it, this one mint plant is going to become very invasive and take over this whole bed if I was to make that mistake and grow the mint in this bed. So if you really want to grow mint, you need to grow it in a container where you can keep it contained. So this particular mint variety is Spearmint Kentucky Kernel. It smells really good, so I just had to get it. But in order for me to grow it without it taking over the rest of my garden, I'm growing it in a container. Well, I got everything in my garden planted. Let me know in the comments what plants you guys have either used as companion plants or intercropped together. And I want to hear your stories about your successes or your failures about gardening with intercropping strategies. But if you found any information in this video helpful, please consider leaving a like and subscribe for more gardening videos. Until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side of the garden. Thanks for watching.